The changes initiated by Pope Leo XIV at the John Paul II Institute for Marriage and Family Sciences have caused not only ripples but waves across the global Catholic intellectual community. For more videos, subscribe, like, comment and share. From Nairobi to Notre Dame, from Madrid to Manila, voices across continents are weighing in. What emerges is a tapestry of hope, concern, confusion, and sometimes, outright resistance. This part explores how the global Catholic world is reacting, especially in academia, and what these responses signal for the Church's future. 1. Faculty silence in Rome, but dissent abroad. In Rome, the remaining faculty at the central campus of the Institute have largely remained silent, adhering to Vatican protocol and the curial expectation of loyalty. However, outside Italy, reactions have been far more vocal. Washington, D.C., USA. At the John Paul II Institute in Washington, affiliated with the Catholic University of America, at least 3 senior faculty members privately expressed disapproval, stating that the new direction undermines decades of intellectual rigor. In a leaked email, one professor wrote, "This is not reform, it is a strategic redirection cloaked in pastoral concern, which risks theological relativism under the guise of inclusion." Some students held a prayer vigil in response to the dismissal of certain professors in Rome, standing in solidarity with what they called the true legacy of John Paul II. 2. Catholic universities split along continental lines. Interestingly, reactions vary significantly by region. In Europe, most academic institutions in Germany, Austria, and parts of France have welcomed the reforms. The University of Tübingen released a statement praising the shift toward ethically engaged Catholic scholarship rooted in social realities. In Africa, institutes in Nigeria, Uganda, and Kenya were more critical. Archbishop John Baruch of Lagos University expressed concern that removing metaphysical clarity from the teaching of marriage opens doors to a moral gray zone, a mistake we cannot afford in a continent still battling the consequences of secular liberalism. African Catholic universities have traditionally been strong defenders of traditional moral teachings and feel increasingly alienated by reforms perceived as Eurocentric. In Latin America, responses were mixed. While some liberation theologians viewed the changes positively, institutions in Chile and Brazil aligned with Opus Dei or other conservative traditions issued letters of concern to the Dicastery for Culture and Education, requesting assurances that the integrity of Catholic anthropology will be protected. 3. Interviews with students, generation gap emerges. We conducted interviews with theology students across multiple campuses to understand the ground-level impact. The generational divide is pronounced. Maria, 23, theology major, Philippines. I admire Pope Leo XIV's openness to the environment and social issues. But I'm afraid we're losing the deep theology of St. John Paul II. It feels like we're trading gold for bronze. Luca, 26, Rome campus. The new courses are interdisciplinary, and that's great. But the soul of the Institute, that sense of defending truth in the face of cultural collapse, is slowly fading. Natalie, 31, University of Notre Dame, USA. This isn't betrayal. This is growth. John Paul II's teachings were prophetic for their time, but they don't cover questions like artificial wombs, gender dysphoria, or AI. We need tools that can. 4. Catholic think tanks and institutes issue statements. Several Catholic think tanks and research institutes have also weighed in. The Acton Institute, USA, warned that the reforms risk making the Catholic Church indistinguishable from the secular NGO sector. The Catholic Institute of Bioethics in Canada praised the move as an overdue theological aggiornamento that repositions the Church at the moral frontier of the digital and ecological age. The Augustine Institute, USA, expressed sorrow over the erosion of clarity regarding the nature of the human person. These responses show that the shakeup is as much about worldviews as it is about curricula. 5. Bishops in synodal debate over the reforms. Within Episcopal circles, there is no consensus. In preparation for the 2025 Synod on Global Human Development, several bishops raised concerns that the shakeup at the John Paul II Institute could be a trial run for broader reforms in church teaching. Key voices include Cardinal Wilfred Napier, South Africa, who asked for a reaffirmation of John Paul II's understanding of marriage and family. Cardinal Reinhard Marx, Germany, who welcomed the reforms as a breath of theological maturity and courage. Cardinal Robert Prevost, prefect of the Dicastery for Bishops, remained neutral but stated that academic renewal must remain grounded in ecclesiastical fidelity. 6. The Vatican clarifies, but not enough? In a rare move, the Holy See Press Office released a short clarification after weeks of backlash, stating, "The John Paul II Institute remains faithful to the magisterial foundations upon which it was built. The updates reflect the Holy Father's desire to ensure its relevance in an evolving moral landscape." Still, many believe the Vatican underestimated the symbolic power of the Institute and the global loyalty it commands. 7. Lay Catholic scholars publish open letters. A group of 70 Catholic scholars from over 20 countries recently published an open letter to Pope Leo XIV, urging him to clarify the new philosophical foundations of the Institute, reaffirm key tenets from Veritatis Splendor, ensure intellectual diversity in future appointments. One line in the letter reads, "You have the power to reform, Holy Father, but with it comes the duty to remember what made this institute a beacon in the darkening twilight of Western anthropology." 8. Are we seeing the rise of two schools of Rome? Many theologians now speak of a quiet division in Rome. School 1 is the post-John Paul II camp, emphasizing natural law, Thomism, and bioethics rooted in metaphysical realism. School 2, emerging under Pope Leo XIV, champions a contextual, dialogical, and socially dynamic approach to ethics and family life. While no official split exists, the ideological tension is real and growing, reflected in published articles, lectures, and faculty appointments. 9. Seminaries reevaluate their curriculum. As the Institute influences many seminaries, there has been a chain reaction. Seminaries in Poland and Hungary are doubling down on John Paul II's teachings to shield against perceived ambiguities. Latin American seminaries, especially in Argentina and Colombia, are revising curricula to integrate themes from Laudato Si, digital theology, and migration ethics. Some African seminaries, including in Ghana and the Congo, are choosing to disaffiliate from Rome's centralized guidelines in favor of local bishop-led doctrinal structures. 10. Will there be a counter-institute or alternative think tank? Rumors are swirling that several high-profile Catholic scholars and philanthropists are considering the establishment of a new independent institute, modeled on the original John Paul II vision. Potential cities include Krakow, Poland, a symbolic link to John Paul II's roots. Dallas, Texas, with strong Catholic donor networks. Manila, Philippines, a hub for conservative Catholic movements in Asia. The goal would be to preserve traditional theological foundations while operating independently of the Vatican's direct control. If realized, this would mark the most public institutional break within the Church's intellectual structure since the Second Vatican Council. Finally, a church in dialogue or at a crossroads? Pope Leo XIV's changes to the John Paul II Institute have not gone unnoticed. They have ignited global debate, exposed theological fault lines, and triggered a wave of institutional reassessment. Whether this marks the maturation of Catholic theology for the 21st century, or a departure from foundational clarity, remains hotly contested. But one truth is clear: the battle for the soul of Catholic teaching, on life, family, anthropology, and the human future, is no longer theoretical. It is happening now, in classrooms, lecture halls, episcopal synods, and seminaries around the globe. And the world is watching.